Next week marks the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. And leading up to the event, we've been hearing the stories of some of those involved.
Our reporter John Maguire has been to Normandy and has met 3 French women who were young children at the time of liberation.
For the people of northern France, years of Nazi occupation came to an end with D-Day and its aftermath. Civilians paid a heavy price in lives and property destroyed as the Allies drove the German forces south. The fighting was often brutal. Those alive today were mostly children in 1944. Paulette, Jacqueline and Antoinette are among those locals depicted in scenes from the longest yarn knitting project. They remember the American parachutists landing near their village.
Well, my parents realised it was D-Day, but they were expecting the British, but not the Americans.
I can still remember my parents. They couldn't believe it. Yes, my parents were happy when they saw the Americans arrive and the Germans flee.
Antoinette still has her communion dress, made from one of the white parachutes the airborne forces left behind. This is Paulette on the left with the white bow in her hair. The photograph has been recreated in one of the knitted panels. She tells me what it was like for a young girl from rural France to meet Americans for the first time.
They crossed the line, they came across the field and they were in front of our yard. They asked us about things we didn't know and they gave us chewing gum and stuff, but we didn't want any. Yes, and chewing gum. We didn't want any because we didn't know them. But they were very nice.
Here's Jacqueline on the left on her family's small farm. Life under the Germans had been tough for most, and food was scarce.
So my mother gave us something to eat and she was 35, she didn't eat. She always told us that she couldn't see all the young soldiers who were going to be killed to take Carentan. She couldn't eat lunch that day. And that was the most painful moment of the D-Day for me because I saw my mother unhappy, on the verge of tears. What I remember about the Americans is that their bread was very, very white, because we had food restrictions during the war.
The Americans brought with them weird and wonderful items that the locals had never seen before.
Mum was walking along the path and saw a bar of soap. There was a shortage, but it wasn't soap, it was dynamite. My father told her, don't use that because it's not soap. She realised afterwards. Oh yes, it still happens. When the farmers plough the land, they sometimes still find shells.
Much of the surrounding countryside was flooded. Treacherous for both sides, regardless of combat, the water claimed many lives.
When the Americans arrived, they went through the marsh and into the water. There were more Germans in the area who left. They crossed the water, the marsh, and of course there were deaths.
The girls' families were anxious to protect them as best they could, but the battle in nearby Carentan was fierce as the Americans and Germans fought at close quarters.
And we could hear the machine gun fire. It scared us, yes. I found that very hard. Yes, I was scared for the people of Carentan. We couldn't see anything, but we could hear the machine gun fire. But during the landings, we were very scared of the Germans.
They will, they say, always remember the young men who appeared from the sky, left on foot, and changed their destiny.
How to explain it? There's always this gratitude in our hearts. When I go to Utah Beach, every time I imagine it, I always feel compassion for those young people.
D-Day was a lifetime away, but remains part of life here every day.
We've been talking about it for 80 years now, and there's not a day goes by when we don't talk to each other about it. That's true.
Oh, not me. I don't think about that anymore. There are wars everywhere today.
Next week, they will join family, friends and foreigners to pay tribute and to remember those who fought for their freedom, but most of all, to say merci. Thank you. John Maguire, BBC News, Normandy.